Remember? We're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about that. So yes, sexual intimacy in marriage, class 10, welcome. This is everything you say with this is kind of like if people think you're trying to come up with a word like this is exciting. You know, I was thinking of an icebreaker, but we've had multiple people give icebreakers tonight, so I need none. We've had 2 requests. Are we getting out early to do our homework? Yeah. So, you know, a lot of funny. My wife told me, what did you say just a minute ago? Oh, will you turn me on? Her mic. You know, it's just like, okay. So we're all comedians tonight. But I do want you to know that even though we kid a lot, and we'll get into this, but we take this serious, and we know that there's also areas of hurt for a lot of people with this subject. So we're going to be sensitive to that. But we're not going to deny the dignity in the sexual aspect of our relationship and the fact that it is God's design. So by way of agenda for the evening, Elizabeth and I will share, and then we'll have around a 10-minute break because there are pieces of paper on every table, as you will notice, and we have a panel discussion after we finish, so that'll be the 10 or 15-minute break in there. So we're asking you to do, if you so wish, is to fill that out if you have a question. And what we're going to do is that in this setting, you have quite often people are like, it's tough to write the question. So we want everyone to take their paper on the break. Some of you may stay at your table, some of you can walk away, but take the time to write something on there. You can write, hey, I love my wife. We don't care, but if you have a question, please write it on there. Bring them all back, put them on the table after that 10 minutes. We're going to pick them all up. Okay, you follow what we're doing here?
Or even before the 10 minutes, so we can look at them.
Once you're done, put them back. Thank you. That's better yet.
Yes.
All right? Put them back on the table. We want to pick them up. We need time to sort through them and compile and get light questions together and so forth.
So the gray one will be the questions, if you have any questions. The purple one per couple, if you could write your name. We do have 2 drawings tonight, so 1 per couple.
1 per couple.
Don took all of them.
Oh.
Hand them out.
So we will then go into the panel discussion, and as time allows, we will have group. Not knowing how long the panel discussion will go, we anticipate some time for group, but just so you're aware of that. Okay? My mic is quiet. All right? Got the mic man. He's going to turn me up here. Give me a different mic. How's that? Is that better? No?
Here, just take this.
No.
Okay.
I don't want you to have to go
Okay,
through
because
that.
we're looking at quarter
Oh,
2.
my wife's getting nervous on the time. I better get going. All right, and I understand. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to gather. And Father, share some thoughts from you, from your word. May your truth be given tonight, and may everyone in here be open to what you want to say, starting with us. We all have areas to develop in this area of our relationship, and so we all open our hearts to your word and to how you want to work. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Are you ready, Elizabeth?
I am.
All right, here we go. So as I stated earlier, we're going to focus on the dignity and the fact that the sexual aspect of our relationship is God's idea. Is that better, Sean? Okay. Right into it. All right, here we go. A great sex life is a journey, though. As you can see, we've got. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm going to really test my ability tonight. I'll get this down here.
I'll help you.
Anyway, thank you, honey. Help me with the slides. Anyway, it takes time, discussion, and it's a mystery about discovery, and it takes patience and, no pun intended, but practice. Think about it as a lifelong course of study, just like anything. And what's really interesting is when we look at this from a world standpoint, we go to school for everything. But again, like every other component of our marital relationship, we think we should know all about it when we get married, and because the world teaches us that, but we're not. And so sometimes we can move into embarrassment or shame and go, I'm just not getting this thing. It takes time. Even there's people that we've spoken to that have been married for 30 years and are still struggling. Some of them because of the marital night, the marriage night. Okay, So this is a fresh start for everyone. So we want to be sensitive to your needs and where you're at, but we definitely want to celebrate the fact that this is God's design.
So
And so-
welcome to Sexual Intimacy 101 class. Okay, you're going to be studying tonight.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep, and there will be homework. Okay. Let's start in the beginning. Somebody's excited. All right. Okay, here we go. God's design for sexual intimacy. We read in Genesis 1, 26 through 31, that God created us male and female, and he created us in his image, and he saw that it was a good thing. So this is a good thing. And it means a good thing, it's all good, what God created, right? And so, anyway, the next verse summarized is that the fact that God took woman from man, and the rib, and made them one flesh, and called them together, and there's no shame. There's no shame in the relationship. God's design that there wouldn't be anything but joy in the relationship. But again, the culture certainly has told us different. Next.
Okay.
Okay.
As we teach tonight, you will see that the greatest pleasure and fulfillment in the sexual unity between the husband and wife is possible when the man learns to listen to his wife and he follows her lead. The way he moves and he has impact now is to follow her lead in the lovemaking. Before we talked about the man has impact when he leads, but in lovemaking he needs to follow her lead. Much of the talk that we will talk tonight is from the book of Song of Solomon. The great lover, the King Solomon, provides a wonderful model for giving himself for his wife, letting her lead in the sexual part of the relationship. So as Gary continues, you will see that Solomon, he adores his wife, he compliments her, he praises every aspect of her. He is very, very verbal. He delights in all of her body parts, both sexual and non-sexual. It will get pretty steamy. I was thinking of getting a fan. His adoration of her arouses her to the point that she can hardly wait for him to come to her. Because she feels this connection and she delights in him, she begins to initiate the sexual act. She is inviting, and she invites him in passionately into an overpoweringly intense, erotic adventure. Her invitation validates him, so he keeps affirming her and adoring her. He's focusing on her without pursuing her sexually, you'll see in the beginning. And it does not leave him deprived. We will see that affirmed, adored women tend to get in touch with themselves sexually. A turned-on woman is usually a turned-on man. His needs will most certainly be met. I don't know about you, but I want to hear more about what the Bible says. So tonight we will be looking at tenderness, sexual intimacy, two people pursuing each other, and let's go.
Speaking of what the Bible says, some of you, this may be somewhat new as far as the Song of Solomon, and the fact that this is a very intimate, very sensual book. In fact, in the Jewish culture, quite often they wouldn't let the young men read this book until they were of marrying age, okay, because it was considered too erotic. So if you have the idea that the woman can't lead and that God's not for sex, read the Song of Solomon. You will come away definitely impressed the other way. So starting in Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 8 through 11, we see that he says this: "If you do not know, most beautiful women, follow the tracks of the sheep and graze your young goats by the tendons of the shepherds." This is poetic now, all right? So you gotta stay with us. "I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. Your cheeks are beautiful with earrings, your neck with strings of jewels. We will make you earrings of gold studded with silver." All of this came very natural when that's the end of the verse there. So anyway, we can see here that Solomon is using some pretty flowery words. I mean, he's really calling forth here his bride, and he's telling her that she's the most prized possession in his life. right? I mean, if you look in here, verse 9, it says, my darling, he likens her to a mare among Pharaoh's horses. I mean, that doesn't sound real appealing to most of you ladies, does it? But if we understand it's poetic from that generation, it's a big time compliment, all right? Because of course at that time the horses were very, very esteemed, and so that's a huge compliment. But he's telling her, of course, how he feels about her. He's calling forth what he sees in his wife. He's talking about her work ethic, that's where she's out with the sheep, she's working, all right? And of all the women in the world, he's choosing her because of her integrity. And he's treating her this way in private and in public. And quite often, by the way, we need to be genuine, but we need to learn to do that with our spouses, is to praise them genuinely in public, because that means a lot. Okay, now we go on. 1 through 7. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is alone. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like a tower of David, built with elegance. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your 2 breasts are like 2 fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of incense. Verse 7, all beautiful you are, my darling. There is no flaw in you. So here's the thing. He's starting where? Gentlemen, up here. Starting with her face, her eyes, her teeth, okay? Her hair, her neck. All right, now, again, he's talking about her neck as like the Tower of David. That might not be, we might not get that so much, but we need to put it in today's terms, okay? But the point is, he's calling forth her beauty, and it's non-sexual, is the point, okay? And he's really calling forth what he sees in her. He's not talking about any flaws, because remember, we all have flaws, and all women have flaws, and they're more sensitive to their flaws than men are, okay? I mean, you take models, supermodels, and they find fault with their body, okay? It's just human nature. We're flawed by nature, sin nature, and we tend to look on that. So we need to focus on the good. Okay? On we go. But we don't need to come in as experts. But as we read in 4, verse 1 through 7, your lips are red silk thread. Your mouth is beautiful. He's calling everything forth here that he sees about her, but the fact that we don't have to be experts, but we need to find those things that are unique. Like Elizabeth, for example, one of the things I compliment her on is her skin and her eyes. All right, I think she has beautiful skin and she has beautiful eyes. I like the color of her skin, her complexion. All right, that tone is appealing to me, attractive to me. Okay, you would see something different in your spouse, but you need to call that forth. All right, on we go. Next verse. I will go to that mountain of myrrh, her breast. Now he's moving down. Okay, he started here and he's moving down the body. Is the point. All right. First, he called forth her character and the qualities he saw in her that were non-sexual. Now he's moving down. And to that hill of frankincense, we'll get to that, while the day breathes its last breath and the shadows pass away. Okay? You're beautiful all over, he says again. So once he's affirmed her, here's the point. She feels safe. This is the really, really key point here, is that she feels safe, and we need to do that, gentlemen. All right? We need to make our spouse feel safe. That comes out, that's still alive in our relationship. Whether it's a door that's not closed, is the curtain completely closed, all right? But even physically, if Elizabeth is not feeling affirmed, and even at my older age, if I go too fast, if I may say, it's not so good. She goes, slow down, Tiger, all right? So, all right? Yeah, I know you guys are jealous a little bit, but that was for my brother. He picks on me. So anyway, But anyway, again, let's remember that we want to go slow and we want to affirm. Okay? So, what can we learn? Just what we just said here, okay? We affirm by finding the physical beauty in our spouse, and we don't criticize. One person said, in fact, Lizzie usually says this, never criticize any part of your wife's body that you want to see again, okay? So do with that as you wish. All right, so now let's look at her description of herself in the Song of Solomon. And she says, I'm a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valley. She's saying, I am special in your eyes. She's affirming back to him, I really feel good about myself. You really have edified me. I feel safe with you. I feel loved with you. And when it comes to the sexual component, safety is a real big thing, and respected. If your wife is not, if she's feeling judged, or that you don't respect her and don't accept her for who she is, it's not going to go good in the kitchen and really ain't going to go good in the bedroom. Okay? So that's what we can learn from that. So progression, as it states, it takes time, restraint is needed, and we need to really understand that the result of our affirmation was that she will trust you. Again, and it gets back to what? The beginning, the first, talk about we want to hold our wife's heart, because we are really holding her heart, guys. And we really want to work on that where she feels, where she feels safe, that we can hold her heart and she feel loved. Okay? Oh, yeah. And the greatest sex organ in your wife definitely is her mind. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard for men to understand, but that's where the affirmation is really big. And you can say, well, my wife's gift is not gifts of affirmation. Well, it is. It's more because it's for everybody. The word says to exhort one another daily. Okay? The scripture says that. So that's about everything. So keep that in mind when it comes to this, especially this area of your relationship.
And when we look at progression and taking your time, for men to get to the peak, it can be really, really fast. And for a woman, it may be 20, 30 minutes. I know some women, they think they have to get to that peak as fast as the guy. And you just can't. For a guy, he could have had a crazy busy day, and his mind is on all kinds of things, finances, the job, and everything, and he walks in the bedroom, and you've just stepped out of the shower. Guess what? His mind is just empty now. He forgot about what he was thinking about. For your wife, it isn't like that. She needs to empty that mind. And so when we talk about progression, taking the time, it takes a while for her to empty all those little rooms. Are the children? Where are the children? Where are the kids? I think I just heard a car park or pull up. Is the door locked? Yes, honey, it's locked. Well, can you check it again? Okay. We just moved the bed in front of the window. Could you go outside and just double check that there's no shadows? Progression, it takes time. And so restraint is really, really needed.
Thank you. Okay.
There you go. You're still there.
Oh, what? It's
What?
all right. I went too fast. It's okay. So,
Yeah. You're just following here.
okay. Remember, the greatest sex organ on your wife is her mind. Got it. Next. I thought we did that.
Okay.
All right, things are heating up. Look at me, I'm getting really hot. Take my sweater off. Okay, now he's calling. He's moving here. He's going. Next verse. Come with me, my bride, my darling, my bride. You excite me. He's letting her know. You have stolen my heart with just one quick look from your eyes, with just one of the jewels from your necklace. That's really cool. He's saying you stole my heart. It's just not a physical thing, even for men. I think sometimes women think that, but I want Elizabeth to have my heart, not just in the bedroom, but everywhere, all right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, and it's real important that we really do have that heart connection. And so ladies, sometimes you might think, well, they just want to, I'll use the word get some. It's not what it's about, and it's not about that for most of my buddies when we talk to. The world messes it up, and I think plants a lot of negative seeds in women's minds, but we need to all look at changing our thinking. We need to discuss that as couples, right? How we view and how we even talk about the sexual part of our life. But anyway, so her heart is both ways. Your love is so beautiful, my darling, my bride. Your love is better than wine, right? The smell of your perfume is better than any kind of spice. He smells her. My bride, your lips drip honey, right? So they're French kissing. So things are starting to really warm up here. But he continues to affirm her, and they're not one yet. Okay? They're not one yet. They're not there yet, but he's still affirming her is a key point there. All right? Your clothes smell as sweet as perfume, my darling, my bride. You're like a locked garden. She's still not open. Okay? Your limbs are like a garden filled with pomegranates, pleasant fruit. Okay? The best spices. Again, it just continues. It seems redundant, but I think we really need to focus on the fact that we need to get that, all right? That really affirmation is really, really big here, and to not rush this at all, all right? You're a garden, a well of fresh water, flowing down from the mountains of Lebanon. Okay, lessons and applications. Notice.
And I'm going to just speak
You
on
jump
that.
in.
When we're talking about you are like a garden fountain, a well of fresh water flowing down from the mountains of Lebanon. When a woman feels safe, she will be moist. Her vagina will be ready to have him enter. And so when he's talking about the garden, it is referring to her privates. When it's talking about the spring, it's referring to his privates, okay? So the garden and the spring come together, and the garden is very moist. And when that happens, that means she's inviting him in. So.
I'm not trying to be funny, but with the exception of age. Sometimes things need to be done for that, and you need to know that. Some people don't. Most of you probably do, but we need to be patient with that, and you need to take extra measures if necessary. There, how did that come across? Anyway, Elizabeth, here we go. Every night will be different. And that's a really big thing. A big thing. When I was first married, for you young bucks in here, as my father-in-law would say, something worked one night, and I'm like, I got this thing figured out. Next night's like, what's going on here? That didn't work so good. Ugh. All right? But it's a mystery. It really is a mystery, and that's the cool thing about it. And if it was the same, it'd be kind of boring anyway. There's no discovery in that. There's no adventure in that. This is an adventure, right? And so really enjoy that aspect rather than taking it as a negative. It's like every aspect of our life, we should be growing and developing, okay? So it should be exhilarating. And in here, it says, until the dawn breaks in verse 6, and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hills of incense. I mean, that's like all night long, all right? But that's for you young guys. All right. Lizzie, you're up.
All right. Song of Solomon, she finally speaks. Oh, all right. So now she says, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my lover among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade. His fruit is sweet to my taste. Now, many people refer to that as oral sex. I'm not going to go there, but those might be a question that you might want to ask the panel. Chapter 4 says, wake up, north wind. Come, south wind. Blow on my garden. Spread its sweet smell. Let my lover enter his garden. Eat its pleasant fruits. So up until this point, Solomon was doing the talking. Now she is talking, and she is inviting him in. She feels safe. The door is locked. He has, Kevin Lehman has a book called Sex Begins in the Kitchen, or all day long, he has been pursuing her. It's not just this moment. And so tonight we're talking about the sexual intimacy in that room, but remember, it's all day long. So she's responding. She is expressive. So what can we learn from this? Why does God have this in the Bible? Do you ever think about that? Well, the great lover, King Solomon, he adored his wife, and God wants men to adore their wife. He wants men to compliment and praise every aspect. He wants men to be verbal. That can be tough for men, but God is saying, I still want you to do it. He delights in all of her body parts, both sexual, non-sexual. His adoration of her as he verbally praises her is a turn on to her. She can hardly wait for him to come to her. And if you think about your dating, this is what we both were so good at. We were praising, we were adoring each other. Because she feels this connection, he's pursuing her heart. She feels his delight. She now initiates the sexual act. She isn't inviting him in. I have spoke to so many women that feel like she shouldn't be initiating. And I'm saying, honey, initiate. That is the turn on. It is okay for women to initiate. Her invitation validates him. Your invitation to your husband will validate him. So he will keep affirming you and adoring you. His focus on her without pursuing her sexually does not leave him deprived. He will not die. An affirmed and adored woman, she wants to get in touch with her sexuality. She wants to have that between the two of you be so wonderful. And a turned on woman is something that men just say, you know what? Be honest. It doesn't matter about my response, but if she is responsive and I know that she delights in it, that's what delights me.
Excuse me, honey. And that is really, a lot of women really don't, I believe, and from what we've talked to in our counseling, really don't understand that, don't believe that men are really pleased by pleasing their wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It is big for most men, for me, right? For a lot of men. And it's a real loving thing, if you think about it. And it's not to please to get, it's just a joyful thing to be able to please your wife. And women don't think that it's not. It's a joy and a privileged experience what God has given us.
Right. And so when we say she's expressive, women express what he's doing well. Tell him that he's a great lover. And the next part you'll see that she's adventurous. If we were to read all the chapters and the verses, you would see they're outside making love. Now, I'm not telling you during break, run outside and do that, okay? You've got to make sure where people are. I have so many. Okay, I have to. Anyway, she's adventurous. She's uninhibited. Have some fun. Have that surprise element.
Don't get arrested. We don't want
I
you to
did not
arrested.
get arrested.
No.
Okay, that made it sound like it.
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, the point is she's enjoying sex. She's telling him that she's...
Close, wasn't it? No, just kidding.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, there's great order in what God sees. Okay, yeah. 4 things that women, I want you to really highlight this page of all of them. 4 things that bring excitement to men is what he sees. Okay? So men are stimulated visually. That means we need to give him a chance to look at us. Okay? Get rid of those old granny bathrobes. Get rid of those old negligees. Because what you're really saying is, go away, go away. But put on something where it's an invitation. I'm not even going to, you got it, okay? He delights in our nakedness. So invest in negligees. Take care of your temple. Great sex to a man is a responsive woman. Men will never say, shh. Okay? Most likely, you probably will tell him that, but they will never say, shh. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what is working, what is good. Just you talking about sex, what you like is pleasing and uplifting. What he really wants, what he really wants emotionally is to see how much the pleasure he can give you. He feels like a great lover. If he fails to do that for any reason, he'll end up feeling inadequate. And we talked about that, a man not feeling adequate. He will feel lonely and he will feel unloved. Everything he feels when he's touching your body really is exciting to him. When he's touching your skin, that is a huge turn on. When you touch him, it is about him being pursued. Touch his chest, touch his cheeks. Touch his body with your caresses, with your kisses. The lack of pursuit by a man's wife in the sexual part of their relationship is so wounding. It is as wounding to a man as the lack of communication is to a woman. and I need to say that again. The lack of pursuit for most men by their wives in the sexual part of their relationship is just as wounding to a man as the lack of communication is to a woman. We need to pursue. And that can be, you can think of so many different ways. When we had little kids, I would surprise Gary sometimes, and I would have the kids over at a friend's house. And so he would come home, and there was no kids. And we had fun. And he never said no, okay? He felt pursued. He would call me the next day at work, and he wasn't talking about financial stuff. He wasn't talking about anything else, but he was just like beating his chest.
I said no one time. I just got to be
You
a little.
did?
One time, because I was a young. Some of you maybe heard me say this. I was a young buck. Sorry, and I was like, we could have a little more frequency here, and I was like challenging
Oh,
her,
man.
and she's like, okay, every night, for a week. But the fifth night,
No, we said it for a month. Let's see
well,
if we
anyway,
can do it
the
for a
point
month.
is, we got to keep moving. But the fifth night, I went, okay, I'm good. Let's. We need to sleep here, all right? So anyway, I wasn't as much as I thought I was, but
Okay.
moving on.
All
moving
right,
on.
so here she is. She's responsive. My darling, my bride, I've entered. Oh, no, this
That's
is you
me.
talking.
Hold
Okay.
on there, see?
Yeah.
Gotta be careful. Sometimes when they lead, they go a little too fast. Now watch them.
Oh,
My
man.
darling, my bride, I have entered my garden. Okay, he's there. They're there. I have gathered my myrrh and spice. I have eaten my honey and honeycomb. I have drunk my wine and milk. They have enjoyed. They've consummated. They have been won. They've enjoyed what, the gift that God has given to us is a marital privilege.
So he's still
He
talking.
is
He's very verbal.
Still talking, he's still affirming, and he's expressing his satisfaction, all right? This could be in what we call the recovery state of the stage of the sexual aspect, all right? And it's very, very important, gentlemen and women, to affirm one another, but I think it's really important for the men to lead in this area of affirming. Again, you can start at the beginning, your wife's character, how you appreciate her, and the time that you had together, right? And it's also a time to say, did you enjoy that? If you tried something maybe a little different, talk about it to the point where you're comfortable, all right? And talk about it later as well, but it's a real time of affirmation.
I think
And
some people are saying, but I'm sleepy. I want to go to sleep.
That would be you. But
We're moving on.
moving on. Okay, but so we both have to work at this. I put in my notes. Moving on. The very next sentence is the first time we hear God speak to the couple. This is cool. Dearest friends, eat, drink, be drunk with love. Isn't that cool? God's saying, go for it. God's saying, go for it. Enjoy it, all right? We need to get ourselves set free, right? Because God has set us free. We're free in Christ. We need to move toward Him together. And this is really, I like the way Pastor Bill has always put it, that the sexual aspect of our relationship is like the cherry on top, right? It's at the pinnacle. When everything else is right, when we've worked through all of our intergenerational sin and all the other stuff we've talked about. Now again, don't wait till it's perfect to enjoy this aspect, because you'll wait a long time, all right? But I'm just saying, as you work through all of that, when you get to this part, this is the part to celebrate. Okay, this part will keep your relationship going. Okay, you're not going to have a growing relationship without most of the time without a healthy sexual aspect.
And God is part of the union. And so I think it's very important to pray before and afterwards. To pray before and ask Him to bless it, and then to pray afterwards and just praise Him for that. And if you're struggling in some areas, just stop and say, let's give this to God. Because God is over their bed. And He is just so pleased as He sees you delight in this. So from the beginning, we read how God weaves His plan for sexuality. He created us to be sexual. He created sexual intercourse. I mean, what an amazing God to take a woman and a man and to say, I want you to do this. That there are parts on a man's body and a woman's body that are just there for pleasure. And then he says, I want this to be a mystery until you are one in marriage. And then I want you to learn together. You don't need to know everything from the moment. You can continue. 31 years, it's still a mystery in some ways. And so God is saying, I created it. It was my design. I want you to enjoy this. He gave us the sexual drive. He did. Now we know, though, that sometimes this isn't the case. Sometimes it's not. And so for those that there's pain in this area, I totally understand. We're talking about sexual abuse. We're talking about your first experience wasn't that great. We're talking about introduction to pornography. We're talking about the media. We're talking about the cultural lies. But when we look at what God wants for us, then we say, God, teach me to have this. Take those other thoughts away. And for some of you, you may want to go to the Redeeming the Heart class. I think it's going to be called The Journey. And if it's sexual abuse, to begin to take a look at this. In my own life, I experienced some sexual abuse, and I took that class. And it was good because I began to tell Satan he wasn't going to have a victory here. He wasn't going to have a victory. And I began to claim what God said that I could have. And it was a beautiful thing. And so I don't stand up here saying it just came easy for us. It didn't.
I'm sorry, but with that, keep in mind, either way, you really need to walk through that together if you've had sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a difficult time for both of us because I had to deal with my anger about the whole thing. And then the sexual part of our marriage really cooled off for a period in there.
Good
okay?
year.
Good year, because it was just really, really difficult. Elizabeth wasn't that interested because of what she was going through and dealing with. But when on the other side, it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we come through it. It built our relationship as well, the intimacy in our relationship emotionally.
Yes. So in conclusion, we have some questions in there, but these are not going to be questions that you will be going into group and asking or telling each one, the group members. These questions are for you to begin to ask each other, okay? Do you think God designed sex for our pleasure? Just start with that. Just start with that as a couple. What do you want to move towards in our sexual relationship? Begin there. Maybe it's just, let's just start with the kissing. Let's just go way back. Let's just maybe buy Kevin Lehman's book, which is sheet music, S-H-E-E-T, music, where there's a chapter in there that talks to guys how to make love to a woman. I gave it to my two son-in-laws a week before they were going to marry our daughters because I wanted them to know how God created this, and it was so beautiful. Are there areas in your sexual relationship that you need to reconcile with your spouse and God? And you know what those are. Are there some areas where you just have to go, you know what, let's just get down by the bed and let's just pray. I need to ask you for forgiveness. And some people have gone from the top of the head to the tip of the toes where they've given that parts of their body away to other people. And they've cried, but they've given it to God. And as far as the east is from the west, God doesn't remember that anymore. And he invites us to do the same. How has the lies of the culture affected your union? This can be tough. And so initially, we want you to start with this as a couple. And then if you feel like you get stuck anywhere, that's where we as leaders are available for you. The church is available for you because we want you to enjoy this. It is, we laugh, we cut it up a little bit tonight, but it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And this is a picture of Gary. Back in 1975 was my first date with him, okay? See that hunk? Okay. Pass it around.
Pass it around.
I just have to brag on him a little bit. He is a Song of Solomon. He read the books. He didn't go to the lies of the culture, but he read a lot of Christian books on that, intended for pleasure. And he has been a great lover. He really, really has.
But I want to say, it doesn't mean I haven't struggled. Doesn't mean I never don't take in any of the lies of the culture. Don't have to combat it. let's be real here, all right? It's a fight for every guy in here. Like Pastor Bill says, every one of us deals with a sexual issue in our life or a struggle, okay? Everyone, men and women, we all have sexual issues, all right? So I'm not presenting that I don't have any struggles, because that would be a lie, okay? But I'm grateful to God and to my precious bride here that she's been with me, and we've been able to grow in that area together. And the older I've gotten, quite frankly, the more honest I've been with her about those struggles. And she's really accepted me, and it's built our relationship. And we think it's going to push us apart. You know, look at Steve and Kathy, right? Look how it drew them together tough thing to do. But you say, well, we're not that. We're all in there somewhere, and we all have the struggle. So be willing to take the risk at the right time and share. Okay?
So tonight was about talking about God's design. You have the gray sheets on there. Take this moment to write your questions or a comment. And then the purple sheets, if you would be willing to bring those up and put those by the table here, we will get back together 7:28.
Just a second. Go ahead, Don.
So do you want names on the gray card? No names?
No
No,
names.
no, no, no.
No
No names
names
on
on
the
the questions.
No,
Just
thank you.
the names are for the books that we're going to draw at
On the other paper.
7:30. We'll come back together.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is it clear? So just please leave the cards with the questions on the table. We'll pick them up in about 10 minutes. And then,
Oh, Gary, where did that go?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, a person came up and asked me a question I had shared at a MOPS group, and I just want to go over what I shared at the MOPS group because it answers some of these questions. And I'm going to just kind of read what I wrote because I forgot what I wrote. But it's about giving and taking sex away. There's many nights that I personally have rejected Gary. I didn't say it with words. There have been nights when I allowed the sun to go, I'm going to get real personal here, to go down on my wrath, and I positioned my body so Gary knew that nothing was going to be taking place tonight. If any part of his body accidentally touched me, I was sure to move all the way to the edge of the bed, okay? So many times in my anger, I forfeited a good night's rest and a portion of our queen-size bed for that tiny corner just to make sure no part of my body was going to touch his. Satan had me believing it was my right to deny intimacy because I was mad about something. And so the scale in Sick of Sex said, when I was about 10 years old, I had a friend who played at my house quite a bit. If she didn't like the way things would go, and they always had to go her way, she went home. I always wanted her to stay because she had a lot of great toys, but she took them with her whenever she would leave. She was a typical, I'm going to take my ball and go home if you don't do what I say, girl. How many of us can relate, though, in the sexual part? We're still the little girl not liking the way things go with our spouse, so we take our toys away. Some of us don't go home, but we go to that little corner of our bed, that king-size bed, just to make sure that no part of our body will touch his. My husband hurt my feelings. I didn't feel heard. So we take away our toy, our bodies, we punish them emotionally, physically. Problem is, I still want to be with him. We really do want fellowship and play, but now I feel rejected and lonely. Is this what we are doing in our intimacy with our husbands or with our wives? When we don't get our way, we take our toys, we leave. Our spouses have a God-given sex drive that pushes them to want to have sexual intimacy with us. They desire sex with us because then he knows the relationship is good. How would it feel, women, if he decided he was too tired of being rejected on and off again, and one day he just decided he would find someone willing to share his toys? 1 Corinthians says, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you devote yourself to prayer. The end of that verse reads, but then come together again so Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So I realize holding on to sex is selfish. Staying in that little corner of my bed is very selfish. It is sin. I'm being self-centered. And having no toys to play with and no one to play with is lonely. And so in conclusion, if there is anything, area that God is convicting you about how we've taken our toys away, be it a male or a female, then we need to go, okay, God, how am I sabotaging this? What do I need to own here? And so thank you for, I forgot who came up and asked me. Thank you, Christy, for that. Close.
Pardon?
Take one, keep on going round and round.
Round and round? Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds good. Okay, here we go. We got the panel. We're going to answer everything you always wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. By the way, as Don goes to the first question, I had that book when I was 15. It's a book, and my parents found it. You can imagine that conversation. Don, you're first. That's a book. That's a book. Everything you always want to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. I had the book, and my mom found it when I was 15. All right? It wasn't funny then. Don. Sorry, I thought maybe you were familiar. I'm dating myself. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, am I on? Can you, talking. I'm still talking. I can hear myself talk. And I'm talking
Why don't you
really
give him
well,
that one?
but nothing's happening. There we go. Oh, okay, let's try this one. Is this better? Oh, hey.
All right.
Yes. Okay. So we'll just read questions and we'll go run and round on this one. So first one was, what are some cultural lies about sex? And the first thing that came to mind is that you can have sex with kind of anyone. There's the whole concept of friends with benefits, that sex is as much a part of dating as going out to eat. That's clearly a lie. That sex can be, that sex before marriage is acceptable, another lie. As we started with God's standards in the second class, in terms of what does God desire of husbands and wives, one of the keys is sexual intimacy is reserved exclusively for your partner, for your spouse. And it is a rare thing now where people come into marriage where either the husband or wife hasn't had sexual relationship prior to getting married. So that's some of the cultural lies.
I just wanted to add on to that one that so many of us think that if we live together before we're married, or if we have sex even with our partner before we're married, that there aren't going to be any repercussions in our marriage. And I think that that is another cultural lie, that we in the end do pay for those decisions with a lack of trust. For example, for a woman, if her husband or if she wants to engage in sexual intimacy before marriage, I'll just say for a wife, how can she trust her husband after? That she knows that he's thinking of her. If he can wait, she knows that he has the ability to think of her. So I mean, just even in that one little aspect, there's a trust issue that is created there. So that is a cultural lie that affects our marriage. I mean, as Don said, almost every marriage. So.
Okay.
Another part of that, of course, is pornography and masturbation. I read an article in a woman's magazine. Don't ask me why I was reading a woman's magazine. About 25, 30 years ago. And the author of the magazine was saying, you know what? Women ought to learn how to enjoy sex the way guys do. Guys masturbate and learn how to separate the physical pleasure from the emotional bonding. And women ought to be able to do the same thing so that they can enjoy recreational sex. So I'm not saying, that you should do this to try to learn how to enjoy recreational sex, but the obvious point is that, if you're masturbating or looking at pornography, that's exactly what you're doing, is you're training yourself to separate the physical act from the emotional intimacy and the bonding that God created to take place. And speaking from a physician's point of view, making love releases the same hormones that breastfeeding does in a woman. It's designed to create emotional, physical bonding with her partner. And if you can defeat that by having sex with multiple partners or having sex without the intent of emotional engagement, and you can destroy that part of God's design. And that, I think, is one of the greatest harms that's been done by the cultural lies.
Just mentioning about pornography, I just want to emphasize that you are the only person that your spouse can have sexual intimacy with in God's eyes. You're the only one. And that is a precious, precious gift. And it can only be shared with your spouse. And so no one else can give that to them. And so we need to take care of each other and fulfill that desire. There's one of the reference books, Shanti Feldhahn did statistics. It's called For Men Only and For Women Only. And also, you know, from Gary Chapman, the love language of men, about 80%, their number one way that they feel loved is physical touch. And so women, we feel loved if we're affirmed or affectionate, but men feel loved with sexual intimacy. And the spouse is the only one who can provide that. So just remember how important you are, because you're the only one that can provide that.
Okay, here we go. Next question. How do I as a man last longer? I don't last long enough for my wife, and it's been a very big issue in our relationship. Okay. So I'm going to address the man's issue.
No, this would be great. Come on, let's go.
Is this being
I
recorded?
really am put on the spot here, aren't I? Men need to speak up here. But I will speak to this part, and I'll have Don talk to another part, and then the guys can chime in. But I think there's a part here that says I don't last long enough for my wife. Okay, so I'll speak to the wife's maybe perspective on this. I think there's a lot that goes on in a sexual relationship that doesn't actually have to do with the actual penis being in the vagina kind of part, okay? Let's just put it real bluntly. There's a lot that a guy can do to satisfy his wife, apart from that. So if he knows that he's not going to be able to last that long, there's a lot that he can be doing to make her satisfied. Let's put it that way. So I don't want to downplay it, but I would say that that I would spend more time focusing on those things. Okay, let's let a guy talk about this.
Okay, so I'll be maybe a little more direct from a guy perspective. So, yeah, wanting to last all night long, wonderful concept, at times extraordinarily difficult to execute. So, some practical things. Actually, Kathy and I had a talk about what was going on when the intensity started to build and I knew things were going to end sooner than I wanted to. I'd literally say, "Hun, we got to slow down," because I didn't want to hit my peak before a while. And that helped. Also, gauging positions. Some positions feel extraordinarily good, while others are nice, but don't create the same level of intensity. So moving different positions can also help in that desire to remain erect. I mean, that's essentially it. One of the other things, Kathy mentioned it or touched on it, but really, this is all off the cuff. Thinking about it, one of the biggest things that helped me was shifting all of my focus to Kathy and becoming a student of her. And as Gary and Elizabeth said, it changes. You know, one night something works awesome, you try it again and it's like, what happened? That's where the student comes in, because it does change. And it's not always the same. And it's kind of a treasure hunt of sorts. But when my focus is about Kathy and her pleasure, then it's almost like taking yourself out of the equation. Oh, I definitely go along for the ride. But it changed the dynamic completely.
I think one of my thoughts would be I would want to know how long has it been since the last time they've had sex. For a man, every 72 hours, his body needs a release. When I found that out, I was like, whoa, so, okay, you are normal. And so if it's been a week, if it's been a week, he's not going to last that long. For some men, it's okay if the man does come first, and then maybe in the morning or a couple hours before. There's a question here very similar. I feel pressured as a wife at times to let my husband have an orgasm without me having one. I enjoy sex. We don't have it that often. Could you speak to that? And so sometimes it's okay if the man does come. And then he realizes he's got to re-engage because it may take her a little while. I've known some women that I've talked to that it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And he's like, oh boy, I can't hang on that long. It's okay. Don't hang on. Go. And then come back and be there with her. But if the guy has an orgasm and the woman wants an orgasm and she hasn't had one yet, guys, you've got to get back in the mood, and you've got to initiate with your spouse because that's a selfish part.
That's good. Okay, next.
Well, she answered the 72-hour biologic, actual scientific. So anyway, about 10 years ago, one of my friends told us about that. It wasn't something they taught us in medical school. And she challenged us, all right, every 72 hours at least. And I can just tell you, it will really, really help your marriage incredibly much. Even if it's not your love language, that is your gift that you can do to serve your mate. So that was one. Now, there's a question here that I think I should address. We're all really uncomfortable up here, and this question is just like the ultimate in uncomfortableness. And it says, is oral sex a part of real good sex life? Yes. I should say I was raised in the Baptist church, and we literally, they would turn the lights on in the bus so that everybody, if they were holding hands, with the teenagers, hands in the sky, and they taught us that, a time bomb would go off with the gunpowder, and, if you, touched each other, then a bomb would go off, and pretty soon you'd be pregnant. So I was very conservative. And so the beautiful part about remaining pure, and what you should encourage your children to remain pure, because then you can grow together and learn from your spouse, and things that you would never dream are something that God created. He did, and it's good, and it's wonderful, and you need to go to God and pray, and He'll show you what will make your lovemaking wonderful. And some of these things that are very awkward to talk about can be very good. So, absolutely.
Just one quick comment. There's oral sex is a part. It can be a part of sexual experience between husband and wife, but I believe the key is talking about what you're comfortable with. So if I desire that more than Kathy, and I come away from here saying, "Hey, it's right, let's go," that would be very wrong and disrespectful. You got to talk about what your desires are and be willing to be open and honest about that, but then you have to listen to your spouse's response. And it may take a while, and the answer simply may be no, that one of you doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to go there. And those are things you have to kind of talk through and work out.
And when we're talking about the culture lies, that is one thing I'm seeing with high school students, that they don't want to get pregnant, and so there's a lot of oral sex. And that's their first experience. And now they're in a committed relationship and they're married, and it brings back the trauma of that event. And so oral sex for them isn't pleasurable anymore. And so you've got to talk sometimes about that pain of the history. And then if one has been violated, you don't go there.
Steve?
I would just add, it gets back to the question we started with, and that, you know, you need to learn what gives your spouse pleasure. And that needs to be something that they're comfortable with. But I think it is very healthy to, you know, the thing every young guy learns to joke about is foreplay. You know, but foreplay matters. There's more to a healthy sex life than intercourse. And I think you need to learn what gives your spouse pleasure, and make that, you know, a priority. Sex should be unselfish.
Just want to add one thing. Who's got the book Intended for Pleasure? Somebody won that tonight? Okay. I grew up in a very Catholic family also, and then Intended for Pleasure, we were reading that book. It is a good book that stretches those boundaries, not stretches the boundaries, that addresses some of these issues.
It brings to mind one other cultural lie, and that's the old joke or tradition about, you know, putting a nickel in the jar every time you make love your first year of marriage, and then taking one out after that, and you know, the joke is you'll never empty the jar. One of the couples wrote a comment and that I will second, and that is, after 20 years of marriage, their sex life is only getting better. You know, it's you know, like Elizabeth said, it's an adventure, it's an art, it's a lifelong pursuit, and you know, if you're unselfish about it, it does truly get better with time.
One of the questions was in regard to children. Any advice if you're in a season of marriage with children, newborn to toddler? What does intimacy look like? Boy, that's tough. When we had young children, I had a good friend. She would take all three of our kids for probably 3 times a year, a whole weekend. And then I would take her 3 kids. And so we knew we had at least 3 weekends. You have vacation time when those kids go to school, you take vacation. And they're in school, you're at home. You talk to your grandparents. Sometimes you just have to be real creative. Sometimes I would be tired all day because I had those kids pulling on me all the time. Gary would come home and he would say something like, okay, honey, what is your needs? What's your expectation of tonight? What can I do for you? And sometimes it was just, I needed an hour by myself. And so I would go up in the bedroom and be there by myself. He wasn't pressuring me. And the more I thought of him giving me this time, I began to feel refreshed. So put a lock on the door. It is okay if your kids, you tell them, you can't come in here right now. Mommy and daddy are doing some homework.
Yep.
You know? Yes.
Okay, good one.
Instead of saying homework, you can just let them know early on cuddle time is really important
Yes.
for mom and dad, and they kind of get used to knowing this is their time together, and then as they get older, they get it.
Yes.
They understand that it's a very healthy part of the relationship. So
Right.
cuddle time is a good thing to use instead of, you know,
Yeah. Yes.
That's very good, Annie. Thank you.
Yes.
That's very good. Okay, so we're gonna keep moving. We have a lot of questions we're gonna try to get through yet. So here's the next one. What is the wife's role in initiation if the husband has been affirming her sexually, non-sexually? You were making it sound like the wife was doing all the initiating. We were focusing on that. You're correct. But it's both ways. If you read the whole book, the Song of Solomon, it's back and forth. All right, he's pursuing her. They're knocking on the door. It's both ways. All right. The big thing we want you to get out of that is that it's not only okay, but it's a good thing if the wife pursues. All right. It's both ways. Okay. Next.
Yeah, I think I just want to second that just real quick before we move on. I think the way I took it was that the husband, with the affirmations and all the things that he's saying to her, is like, and I think you guys also said that a woman's largest sex organ is her mind. If you can get her to that place of feeling appreciated, loved, she hears how beautiful she is, that is a huge thing. I mean, so she's going to want to engage with you if you have gotten her to that place. So I you know, then I guess if you want to call that initiating, then that's initiating on her point. But it's not that the guy's not doing anything. I mean, he's definitely saying a lot of great stuff and being proactive.
Okay, I'm going to combine two questions. So I'll just kind of paraphrase. So how do you begin to heal a marriage nearly wrecked by sexual sin? Is it appropriate to discuss our sexual struggles with friends? And there's a comment in here about spouse being hurt, very hurt, through sexual abuse before marriage. And so sexual sin, I'm kind of using in a general sense, or my interpretation of that could be anything from pornography to affairs, but also sexual sin can be sexual abuse. So let me start with the last one. Is it appropriate to discuss our sexual struggles with friends? I would say be very careful with who you're sharing things with. They have to be, I would say, strong believers in Christ. They have to be mature believers in Christ. And you may want to test the waters with other things before you start sharing that level of intimacy with friends. Any other comments on that one?
It may be obvious and not necessary to state, but you shouldn't share anything like that with an individual of the opposite sex. That you need to be either sharing as couples or in a situation where you're not going to create one-on-one intimacy with that sort of conversation, because the potential is there for someone to say, here's a wounded person, this is an opportunity for me to take advantage. Or they may be good-hearted to start with, but then develop care and concern for that individual, and that in turn leads someplace not so good.
And I would say, when you're looking at the stats, 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 5 men, by the time they turn age 18, have been sexually abused. So when you look at a room this full of 60, 70 people, there could be 20 that this question is about. You need to have those conversations. Sometimes people have never talked about it. And so I was working with a woman where just totally freaked out when her husband began to play with her hair, because every time her abuser would abuse her, he began to touch her hair, and it freaked her out. I knew another woman, it was just the bathroom thing. Her brother would sneak up on her. So have those conversations. But when you're talking about sexual abuse, that takes a professional. That takes somebody that has walked that a little bit. But God can redeem those years. He really, really can. And so I guess I would really strongly suggest to meet with a counselor.
And just to reiterate that Satan wants to use those wounds from the past to destroy your relationship. And, you know, Satan is defeated, and with God's help, people have been hurt very, very, very badly, but God can overcome any of these things. He promises nothing is impossible, and so we need to get that help and trust in God and just not let him get any foothold in this part of our relationships.
The only additional comment is, with my background, sexual abuse was kind of pushed pretty it was taken to an extreme, and it created a lot of pain. So if I know sexual abuse is part of some of the folks there, your background, I'm really, really sorry. It shouldn't have happened. Clearly not what God wanted for your future, but sin is part of this world. Everything that was said tonight that God can heal absolutely can and does take place. For me, that road was pretty dang hard. It was awful. But if I look back from where we started in our relationship to where we are now, how do you compare what was an absolute race to stay ahead of lots of emotion and pain to something now that's absolutely wonderful? And the change has been miraculous. That path took a while to traverse.
Next question?
Okay. Okay, you mentioned it takes women longer to climax than men. Does a woman typically take longer after climax to come down? Do some men withdraw too soon for her full aftershocks? Okay, I got a woman's question now. I think I can handle some of this, maybe. I don't know. It does take women longer than men. And yeah, you know, when after a woman has an orgasm, she continues to feel pretty good. I mean, her orgasm, it kind of goes like this. It goes down, 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 but it's not like this. So she is definitely still feeling like touching and holding and loving and all that kind of stuff for that whole time. It definitely is true. I think do some men withdraw too soon for her full aftershocks? I think maybe, I don't know. But I think, remember, as long as you are attentive to your wife, you continue to hold her, you continue to love her, you continue to be present with her, and she can maybe ask if you could do something, if there's something that she wants still. That would be awesome if you're a guy and you have a wife who's asking this question, just continue to be attentive to her. So I don't know if any other one wants to add.
Good answer.
This question is, how can I stay attractive to my husband? Now, if any of you men have ever been pregnant and know what it feels like to have your body just totally become different than usual and then be, sucked upon. I mean, it is doesn't make you feel very much like you want to have any more physical contact. So as we all age, we start not feeling as good about how we look. And so, the question, how can I stay attractive to my husband? I guess I, would urge the women, do your best to take care of your temple. But really, guys, you can help us in this area. And you can, like they were describing, please, affirm us and let us know that you like what you see, even if we don't believe it. Please try to remind us. And the other thing is, guys, your wife will become much, much, much more attractive to you if she is the only one you think about or look at, so that every time there's any image, whether it's even the underwear on the Kohl's in the newspaper advertisement, bounce your eyes away. Going down the street, someone's jogging, bounce your eyes away. And if your wife is the only one you're thinking about, and you're not having any other looking at pornography or anything else, you are going to start really, really wanting your wife. And it will make your intimacy much, much better.
I completely agree. And I would add that that this might perhaps be another one of those cultural lies, that it's all about your physical appearance. How many of the starlets that our culture would consider beautiful have had, disastrous relationships? It's not all about their, physical beauty. What makes a woman attractive is her character, her confidence, and her desire. This is a point Gary and Elizabeth made very well, I think, but a guy wants to be wanted, and he wants to feel like he is a good lover who can please his wife. And so it's a two-way street. The guys need to affirm and compliment and build up their wives, but the wives need to believe their husbands, and in return, pursue. Nothing is more attractive to me than when Kathy is, confident and engaged in our relationship. And another point I'll make is, some of the women are concerned about getting older, but I was born 9 months before Kathy was, so I keep reassuring her I will always be older than she is. She will always look young to me. So.
All right. We have a question. How does a woman initiate in a caring, gentle manner, which could feel like a cold invitation on demand? So here you have, it sounds like a man feeling like the woman is initiating, but it feels cold, the invite. There are some times where women want more sex than the man. There are some times where a man is not that interested. And so now we've got some other issues going on. And so I would probably want to meet with both of them, because for the man, if he feels like the woman is initiating, but it feels cold, what else is going on? Because sometimes when men feel like sex is dirty, or they feel like their wife shouldn't be initiating, there has been some abuse. I worked with 2 guys who had sexual abuse, but also sexual sins in their high school relationship. And one resulted in the girl that he never married having a baby. And his wife never knew, his current wife never knew that they had an abortion. And so every time his current wife and him had sex, there was a lot of guilt. And so I don't know, what's going on, but when a man feels that his wife is being too pursuing, I don't know, you guys speak to that? How does a woman initiate in a caring, gentle manner without being blunt, which could feel like a cold invitation on demand?
Yeah, there was I can't remember which book I was reading where it actually talked about that, where a man wants to be able to pursue his wife. I think it is important that a woman be responsive, but it is a delicate balance. And maybe there are things that she can do that would be less blatant, but that would show that she's open to making love with her husband without directly coming right out and saying it. Maybe there's ways that she can dress a certain way, or use a certain perfume, or just approach him gently, or make some comment, or just rub up against him in a certain way that would give him the indication that she's ready and available, but she doesn't actually say it.
That do it for me.
It could
Okay,
also
there we
be
go.
that he emotionally feels hurt too.
Yeah, so there
Yeah.
may be, we focus a lot on women, that there can be trust issues for women, and they need to be trusting and feel secure, but there may be a trust issue for him as well, and that needs to be talked about too. Both people need to feel safe. Barry?
I did those already. Marriage with children. Yeah, we're all done. Yeah, I did that one. Yeah. No, let's stay serious. Okay, just let it be.
Of being a man, it carried itself into what I thought was the way it was supposed to work in the bedroom. And it took a few years to realize that, hey, look, no, we come to intimacy submission style is the only right style, because the woman is subservient to the man.
So would you say that, would it be fair to say that because you had those beliefs about culturally that were given to you, that when you were approached, you felt like you weren't enough of a man because you should be the one leading?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
It's a control thing, you know, I'm the man, I should be initiating, the woman is there for me. You know, that's a very twisted view of what's
Okay, and as you can see from the Song of Solomon, there's a give and a take. And I think if any of the rest of you have felt that way, I assume if one feels that way, there's probably a lot more guys who feel that way. And in the Song of Solomon, that's God's word. That's what we need to look at as our example. And so you see men and women both being aroused, both pursuing each other, and that's what we need to use as our model.
Nope, where?
Yeah.
Just one thought as we go to the next one here. There's been a lot of talk about orgasm tonight, and I just really,
Maybe I didn't.
I don't think you did that one.
Okay.
But anyway, that seems to be, sometimes people will make that a goal of the sexual act, and it shouldn't really be the goal of your sexual act, all right? Because, and there's a lot of, you can pick up it's all over, all right? It's a big focus. The goal should be intimacy, oneness, connectedness. And yes, pleasing one another is a part of that. I'm not denying that, it's wonderful, but don't make it a goal. All right, it should be a desire for each one of you. And sometimes one or the other will have it, and you need to communicate that you'll be okay with that. Okay, that is real key. Sometimes, you know, Elizabeth will say, "Hey, I'm good tonight." All right, let's just be honest about it. All right, and sometimes I'm like, "But no, all right, but I want more than that." No, but it's okay, Gary. And then I go, "Oh, okay, she really means that." All right, so enough on that one.
Yeah,
Are you all gone? You any more?
Okay, there was just one more that maybe for me here. This gal says, I feel as though my husband is a great lover, always telling me I'm beautiful, wants to take his time. I feel safe with him and I trust him. Still, my desire is not very strong at all. How can I tell if this is age or something more? And I just would like to say that it's really common for one partner to have a more stronger sex drive than the other one. And it doesn't always have to be the man having the stronger sex drive. It can be the woman having a stronger sex drive. Probably more often than not, it's the man, but it doesn't have to be that way. Both are very normal. If the woman has a stronger sex drive, that's normal too, okay? But in this case, the man has a stronger sex drive, and she wants to know if this is okay. How can I tell if this is age or something more? I think this is a hard question. I would say that between us, I'm the one who has the less stronger sex drive, so I probably would fit in more with the stereotypical thing. And this has been hard because I think it's created a lot of hurt for Don and I in our relationship. And I didn't understand a lot about how he liked the 72-hour thing, and I didn't understand about any of that. And I also had some sexual abusive stuff in my past, so there were all sorts of issues that contributed to that. I would just encourage you to be open and talk about it with your spouse, and find ways that you can be more comfortable with your own sexuality. I think that was a big thing for me, was even just to find little things that you can do to be more comfortable as a woman. And that may actually help too. But to know that it's okay, you never maybe will have the same sexual drive, but as long as you both can talk about it, that he'll understand that it's not, you're not rejecting him, and you're not going to feel like there's something wrong with you. I think that that's really crucial. Do you want to speak into this, Don? Because this is, no?
Sure.
Oh.
No, I agree with communication was actually critical for us because, to be honest, at times, because I would pursue Kathy and Kathy didn't seem to be interested, at times I felt like I may be a little weird you know, like I'm some kind of pervert and that I was taking advantage of Kathy. So being able to share that, hey, this is kind of, I wouldn't mind doing this real often. That whole month deal that I'm like, yeah, let's go. So, but I had to share that with Kathy, and then I had to be able to hear Kathy say, okay, I hear that, I honor that, but that's not how I'm wired. And that began a whole series of conversations where I could now, I can now just let Kathy know, hey, I really, really, really would like to be together. And she understands. And she's okay, even if she's not necessarily like thinking the same thing I am. She understands my needs, and we'll set up time together. And actually, that just her willingness to do that was just remarkable. It's a gift. It's an act of love, and through those experiences, we've gotten a lot closer.
And one thing I want to talk about the time a little bit. We women, we're great. We do so much. We multitask. So many of you are working. So many of you are cooking, cleaning. You have children. And we give and give and give, and we go until 9 o'clock at night. Then we go to bed, and all we're thinking about is we're going to bed to sleep, right? That's what we want to do. But Mr. Happy over here, you know, he's thinking something else is going on. And so what I needed to do is sometimes stop at 5 o'clock and just go, okay, I just have to rest up a little bit. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is when I think about that I'm going to pursue him, and I start in the morning and I begin to plan, and it's me that's going to initiate. It's not driven by his desire, but it's my desire. Boy, that's fun. That's fun. And
Now everyone's gonna call him Mr. Happy.
well, okay. No.
That's the book.
Kevin Lehman refers to the man's genital as Mr. Happy and the woman's genitals as Mrs. Happy. So Mr. Happy and Mrs. Happy.
Mr. and Mrs. Happy, hi.
Okay, any more questions?
There's one last question here that maybe we can kind of wrap this up, and it's why did God make us so different? Who wants to be the first to ask him that question? But you know, I think you know there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. One is a perspective that comes from the Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage, and that is, you know, the key to Mrs. Happy is through her heart. The key to the husband's heart is Mr. Happy. So the husband needs to pursue his wife's heart, and if she wants access to his heart, she needs to be intimate. Okay? So that's one way of looking at it. But I think the other way of looking at it is the sort of the message we've reiterated a number of times, and that, you know, what if God designed marriage to help us become more like Christ, to become a servant instead of seeking to be served? And I think that you know, God made us different so that we would learn to serve one another, and sexual intimacy is perhaps, you know, it's the culmination of emotional and spiritual intimacy. It's a way for us to learn to serve one another in a manner that God designed and said is good.
There's a question here that we've been passing back and forth because neither of us wants to answer it. Is it possible to no longer be attractive to your spouse? What do you do? Now, one thing that I want to address this with is just like if it's that night where, okay, you're exhausted, you want to go to bed, you're, you know, taking your shower so you can go to bed, and then, you know, the rider on his horse comes in and, you know, he has plans for, you know, a victory. and, and you're not interested. And that is when the service part comes in, and when I would really encourage you to pray and just, okay, God, this is going to have to be with your strength, because I am not in the mood. Change my heart, Lord. Change my heart. I know this is something that he wants and needs and deserves, and I'm the only one that can provide it. Lord, change my heart. And you know what? He does every time, and it's worth it. And it's like you obey, and then your heart comes around and you're blessed. And another thing is, an orgasm is almost as good as electrical ECT therapy to get you those kind of, chemicals to make you feel good, to feel happy. It's a trained counselor once told me, Kathy, you don't realize how you may think you don't want it or need it, but how much you really do need it, and it will really, really be a good thing for you. You wanna add that?
Yeah, so whoever,
A longer term one, as opposed to just that one night if you don't feel attractive.
yeah,
This is on a more, I think that one wants a more permanent, like what if you're not attracted to your spouse?
Yeah.
Or attractive, yeah.
so is it possible to no longer be attractive to your spouse? So what I'm thinking is that this could be a wife fearing that her husband no longer finds interest in her physically. I would say, quite honestly, that's a lie. Period. I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking, it's a lie. It is a lie that your husband would not find you attractive, because I guarantee you that if you think about your husband, you get dressed, you do your hair, makeup, whatever, and you put on something nice that you know your husband will be attracted to, he will come. He will. Yeah, no, sorry. I wasn't thinking that. She went there, and I'm like, oh my.
Yeah.
No, that he. Honestly, ladies, if you get dressed up for your husband and you do that with him in mind and he sees you, he will be drawn to you. Guaranteed. That's how God designed us to be.
But if we have become naggy, whiny women, that is not attractive. And we can be the most beautiful woman, but if our heart is cold and bitter and we have all of this stuff going on, we are not attractive. And so my first thought would be, look at your heart. What does it look like? Is it ugly? Is it sinful? And if it is, go to God and then go to him, and then you will become beautiful in brokenness.
It's also a barometer of everything else that's going
Yeah.
on in your marriage.
And what are the emotional needs that are only supposed to be met in that marriage that maybe aren't being met?
Because the scripture talks about a woman adorned with jewels, but what does God really esteem? What does it say? A quiet, gentle spirit, right? That's the attractive part. I'm most attracted to Elizabeth when she is, not that she doesn't have an opinion, any of that, or not a strong woman, that's not what we're talking about, because that's not attractive anyway, right? But we're talking about that gentleness and that sweet spirit. That's very attractive, all right? And it has nothing to do with your dress size, okay? So if that's all.
I just want to make one comment though, Gary. If for example, if this was a husband, he may have been sexually abused or have had some other issue that would make him not be pursuing, and the woman might take that as a sign of he's kind of the reverse of what Barry's saying. Well, my husband should be the one who's always taking charge, and he should be doing this, and he's not, so therefore he's not attractive to me, or he's not attracted to me. And that's a lie. And there's probably, in that case, there could be other issues that are going on that need to be talked about as well.
Yeah, that's good. So if that's it, I will end with a very lighthearted question and give about a 10-second response to it. And the question is this: When did Elizabeth not get arrested? Well, let me tell you, it's quite a story. But it never happened. So I was totally kidding. We never, from our talk, if you recall, I made reference that she never got arrested, never got close to it. So rest at ease. We were talking about taking a risk. Are you with me? Can I get some affirmation? Okay, you're with me. Good, thank you. She didn't get arrested. So
And
anyway,
one, just to tie it up on a more serious note, also is that the goal is intimacy, and we talked about emotional intimacy and now sexual intimacy. But if you don't have emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy is a better way to put it, you're not going to be able to have sexual intimacy. That comes first, is to have your spiritual intimacy. And if you, just like with the spiritual intimacy, if you get closer to God, each of you closer to God, you will get closer to each other, and your sex life will improve.
perfect ending. Thank you, Kathy. All right.
I'm thinking that it's been a long night, and we haven't talked about it as a group, but I'm thinking group might, or what are we thinking?
I would say, yeah, that we've got a half hour left for the evening. I'd say just gather in your small groups, talk about it, see if you want to take any time to talk about tonight or just disband. Leave it up to each small group leader.
Yeah.
to
Work
make
on
the
your
Okay.
homework.
Go do your homework. Yeah. You figure that out, Mr. Ryder.
Ask Nancy.
Ask your wife.
Practice.
Let her lead. Thank you, everyone.
Could you, guys, still do the tables and chairs, though, before the end?
Who said? Oh. Oh, let's collect them all.